Hey everyone, welcome to Roll Call. Okay, and 3, 2, 1. Hey everyone, welcome to Roll Call. Today we have yet another not so many episode to cap off the year 2005.
Yes, in this episode we will cover Jennifer Lopez's fourth studio album, Rebirth, released February 23rd of 2005 from Epic Records.
We will also discuss why this album to Jennifer represents a fresh chapter in her life and touch up a little bit on her relationship with Marc Anthony.
Yes, so let's unwind and take a short break from film and shoot the shit about pop culture and music starring our leading lady, Jennifer Lopez.
Let's get into it.
Into the thick of it, baby.
Into the thick of it. Let's get loud. Let's get loud. I'm so excited. I always love these episodes because, you know, I've said this once, I've said this a million times. I could listen to Bria talk about music forever because it's something that I just think comes so naturally. And so I always look forward to these mini episodes.
Stop hyping me up. Because, I love talking about music, and thank you for making me feel like I actually am saying something worthy of hearing. So thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So I guess let's just go ahead and get started. So Rebirth is the fourth studio album released by Jennifer Lopez. It comes at a really interesting time in her life, in that her relationship with Ben Affleck, not just her relationship, but her world, her life, her love, her king, her whole entire reality starts to crumble. And both Affleck and Lopez are almost deemed like box office poison after Geely and their relationship started to crumble.
And Jersey Girl.
In Jersey Girl, thank you. No matter what they were in, people were kind of like a little skeptical and side-eyed of stuff. So I know that Jennifer, at least in my research, I learned that she was trying to take a break from film for a little bit and focus back on her music career. And consequently, once she gets into this relationship, which turns into a long marriage, she tries much harder at becoming a lot more, or making sure that this relationship is a lot more private, right?
Yeah, for sure. Because even in our research for like an Unfinished Life, Shall We Dance, when she's she married Marc Anthony really quickly after Bennifer ended.
Yes.
But so they're married, and she's very hush-hush about it, and she definitely learned some hard lessons from her relationship with Ben Affleck. So
yeah.
And some of those hard lessons are on this album.
Yes, they are. And I know, I feel like in earlier albums, I was maybe a little bit more critical. I feel like I'm going to maybe be just as critical with this one, as I didn't really see a lot of growth and differentiation between a Rebirth and This Is Me.
Really?
No, I didn't. And I think part of that is like once Lopez's engagement and relationship with Ben Affleck, you know, very publicly falls apart. She feels like she had been on this like huge roller coaster ride. And once she marries Marc Anthony, she kind of feels like it's this fresh start. She's entering into phase 2 of her new life. It's like, that's one of the reasons why this album's called Rebirth. Like, this is her signal to show the world that this is her time to not necessarily reinvent the wheel, but to show I'm still Jennifer. I'm just not the J-Lo that you all thought I was, because it was this big persona that maybe she felt blew way out of proportion.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because, fun fact, she wanted to name this album Call Me Jennifer, in a way to say, like, you know, Jennifer's fine, Jenny's fine, I'm not quite J-Lo all the time.
Yeah.
Didn't mean to make that right.
No. There was kind of a dispute, right? When she had said that like J-Lo's dead, like don't call me J-Lo anymore. And fans who had kind of steadily called her by that, she has perfume lines, clothing lines, signature personas that were built upon this ideal of J-Lo. It was very confusing for fans when she was just like, no, I don't want to be called that anymore. And so I felt like she kind of backpedaled just a little bit and was like, listen, you can call me Jenny, you can call me Jennifer, call me whatever, but like, this is this new chapter in my life.
Okay, so this might be a tangent, but Grace,
Please.
Shout out to you if you ever have to listen to this, but earlier I had breakfast with my friend Grace, and she was like, you know, I don't like J-Lo. I don't care who she's dating. I don't like, and I was like, you know what, doing this podcast though, like, I feel like, because Grace was pretty much like, I came to know of Jennifer Lopez, like, when she started doing music and all that, and, you know, and doing this podcast, we've seen that really she did grind it out doing movies, being an actress, being very particular about who she worked with and trying to get with big names, big directors, and all that stuff. So I feel like we have a good perspective on, like, her celebrity. But for someone who, like, comes into Jennifer Lopez as of On the 6th, as of The Wedding Planner and stuff like that, all you're getting is pure, like, celebrity and her and Puff Daddy and, you know, the Versace dress, all that stuff. And obviously that's continued with A-Rod and Bennifer and stuff. Marc Anthony, I feel like she definitely toned it down and was very subdued. But I also feel like we can't blame her for, like, the media's interest in, like, those particular relationships and stuff like that. Like, part of that is part of her job in a way. But I don't know where I was going with this.
I think it's more on the line of, like,
distancing herself from J-Lo.
Yes.
And I think she, like, now we're in 2021. Obviously, her Instagram name is J-Lo. She has fully embraced it again. But I think, so one note that I had about Rebirth versus, like, her other albums is that it's, to me, I feel like I see a maturity in her just in terms of the tonality of the music and stuff. And I think it's a step back in some ways, but I also think that because This Is Me Then was so personal, like, this album she wrote, like, she has one writing credit. This Is Me Then, she wrote a lot of those songs. She's singing heavily on those songs. This album, she's back with, like, there's some other people doing background vocals and stuff like that, other writers and stuff like that. But This Is Me Then was definitely a very personal album. Yeah. But, like, the J-Lo album, that's my point, because we're talking about her not wanting to be associated with that nickname or that moniker as much anymore, is, like, very much an album of, like, she made it, I'm here, I'm living it up, I finally reached where I want to go. And this album is very much like a veteran album to me of, like, you know, I've been here, I've seen a couple things, I'm just, like, trying to have fun and just give you guys what, you know, some fun, and that's it. There's nothing very experimental about this album. There's nothing different. There's nothing groundbreaking. The producers, will get into that, are very of that time. So it's nothing that screams Jennifer Lopez. To some, maybe some of these songs could be, I know one of the producers is very much tied to A. and a lot of those songs, like, are very obvious, like, oh, that sounds like One Thing, or, you know. And so it's not very J-Lo in my opinion, like, this album, but it's a solid, like, but I don't think she had, like, a true direction or vision with this album. Like, This Is Me Then, even though it's so much about Ben Affleck, and I'm sure at this time in 2005, she was like, God, why did I do that?
Yeah.
Although 2021 J-Lo was like, you know what? That album is so special, and like it makes so much sense.
Yes. Well, it's like going back and rereading your journals from high school. 5 years after the fact, you're like, ugh, this is so cringy. But then 15 plus years later, when you're going back and rereading your high school journals, it's like, yep, I was exactly who I was at that time. And this writing holds myself accountable for how I was feeling and what I was into and who I was into for that time. And I think I know we definitely touched up on that last mini episode about This Is Me Then, with that it's like journal, diary, song lyrics,
love letters
come to fruition. Yeah. And that's where I slightly disagree with you on this sense, is that Rebirth feels like a reiteration of the same kinds of lyrics. She still refers to Marc Anthony about, she still refers King. Yes.
I was going to ask you about
there's
that
a lot of reuse of certain lyrics that she brings up. And, you know, she hints a lot to how like they have a past, which they do. They had, duetted together on previous records, which we've talked about. They've performed together. They're also
hold the phone, news alert. I found out, I forget how now, so poor podcaster of me, but this is my side gig.
Whatever.
But I found out that they briefly dated, I think, during like the On the Six stuff. Like,
okay.
So this was when I found that out, I was like, oh my God, Homegirl definitely has a pattern. Because as we sit in 2021, we're revisiting her and Ben Affleck.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, what? But the same thing happened with Marc Anthony. We just didn't really know it. Like, it
just wasn't as public.
They've been friends. They are close, and this feels like a safe, like, okay, I think this guy will take care of me.
Yeah.
Won't hurt me. Will have the family I want, and, you know, fuck Ben Affleck at that time. But yeah, so I wanted to put that out there.
No, I'm glad you did, because a lot of her lyrics from this album allude to this past, this established connection and relationship that was clearly set between her and Marc Anthony. And I was listening to this album in the tub. You can find me in the tub with a lot of bub, because I was taking a bubble bath and listening to this song, feeling myself in the moment. And she alluded to this like previous past connection with Marc Anthony. I was like, huh, this almost sounds like, it's almost like when your best friends, childhood friends with someone, and I know grammatically that sentence doesn't make sense, but when you're like BFFs with someone from your childhood and you meet up later as adults and you're like, there's kind of a reason we have this connection.
Yeah.
I feel like being huge Latinx music artists, I can't specifically talk about their, how do I say this? Not like, not pressure to be together, but because they're oftentimes put within the same category of music that it would make sense that they would be together. But
they are totally a Latinx like power couple.
Oh, for sure. And I wonder if part of their relationship not just doesn't have to do with their powerful chemistry, because I really do feel like they had chemistry. They had a family together. That's where her children come from, and he brought in children from previous relationships as well, and they were together for quite some time and really did, I feel like, try their best to make it work. But I also wonder if there was a smidge of like business motivation to want to couple up together.
Very Jay-Z and Beyonce.
Yeah, totally.
Yes. But I feel like to her criticism heavily, Jennifer Lopez knows when to get out, and she's okay with that. And to much people's dismay, people are like, why can't you just, like, you know, something's gotta be wrong, or like, but I feel like that's a powerful thing to be, because so many people just stay in relationships when they just aren't working or they should be out, and I don't think she's that person. And she may be like very intuitive and just like, oh yeah, because when she does talk about when she left Marc Anthony, she's like, I just felt it, like that day I was just like, I don't think I'm supposed to be with Marc anymore. Like, and it's just so weird to hear someone say that and then like be like, yeah, and that was it. Like, and action happened. But I think that's also honorable, because so many people are like, oh, it's not working, he's not changing, or just, I'm just unhappy, but I don't know. And it's just like, to have that power to also just be like, this isn't, I'm not supposed to be here anymore.
Right.
Party's over.
Right. Because someone could easily say, like, I don't know, we have kids together, we're going to like try to make it work, or stay together for the kids, right? Like, we hear this phrase a lot. I was just talking with you about this, Bria, and how I'm not always a believer in astrology, but every now and again, I like to dip my little toesies in the thought and idea. And Jennifer and I share a special connection in that we're both Leos, and that we can very much be in our feelings. And as someone who can like make really quick decisions based on how I'm feeling very strongly in that moment, I can't appreciate that she can wake up that morning and be like, this is not where I'm supposed to be. And stick with that gut and stick with that decision and go with it. I think that's bold and brave.
Yes.
I know. I feel like we are streets ahead. We are streets ahead of like where we should be. So let's, I know. True. And to be fair, this also goes with like the background and context of the whole making of this the movie of this album, and how, you know, yes, Jennifer tried to get rid of this J-Lo persona. This album, as you kind of talked about earlier, it's a lot more milder. It's nothing new. She doesn't like, it's like when a band releases an album right after a banger album that you expect it to be almost just as much of a banger, but it's very experimental and different. We were talking about this with Death Cab for Cutie and The Killers, and how there are certain albums that you get the chef kiss, but other albums that are like, it's okay, good, not great. Yeah. And I feel like Rebirth is one of those moments where she doesn't try anything new. She's not giving herself a complete makeover, which I think was a really smart decision on her part. But I think that also kind of played into some of the mixed reviews of this album.
For sure. I'm gonna look up other albums that came out at this time, because I know that A-Marie's second album came out at this time. That's why the Rich Harrison connection is so like, oh my God. I remember seeing like someone, I think, tweet, you know, like Rich Harrison really did a disservice to A-Marie by pimping out her sound, because he was so tied to her as a producer. So there's certain producers where they work with the artist so heavily that you associate them so closely together, like Rodney Jerkins and Brandy, like, or like Chef's Kiss, Quincy Jones and Michael. But Quincy Jones is so broad, like he can do so many things.
True.
The problem with Rich Harrison, to me, and sorry Rich Harrison, I love your songs. By the way, if you don't know, he produced Crazy in Love by Beyonce. So that is how prolific this man is. So absolutely love. But I think a good producer, and I think Jermaine Dupri said this, like he wanted to be a producer like Quincy Jones, where he could produce for different artists and you don't know it's him. Like, and he's just, you know, able to move and groove in all kinds of different sounds and areas and stuff. And it's not like, oh, that sounds like a Jermaine Dupri produced. Like,
yeah.
thing. And I think Rich Harrison at this time was very, like, obviously poppin', like A-Marie, J-Lo, still working with Beyonce on some stuff. But the heavy drums and stuff of these records are so connected that it's hard not to tie them together. And this is a J-Lo podcast right now, so I'm going to be sympathetic to her and say that poor her in having to defend, like, having songs by him and maybe ripping off A-Marie's sound or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't think it's her fault. Again, I think it's a producer thing because he very well, like, a good producer, I feel like, will tailor their sound to match also the artist's sound and direction.
And not try and recreate something that they just did with another person a couple weeks ago in the same studio.
Exactly. Yeah. Like the drums of one thing and like some, like, I want to see, I have notes, sorry. The drums of one thing are so iconic and beautiful, obviously, but he also produces Whatever You Want to Do on Rebirth, and it's so, like, obvious to me. I'm like, oh, these are Rich Harrison drums, or yeah. So I don't know where I was going.
Well, just like the overall sound of the album, that it's like nothing too different from her previous one, that there's still some overtones from her last album that you can pick out some songs that are like, oh.
Yes, and overtones, my point was overtones from other people who came out at that same time.
Yes.
Definitely not like, okay, we're going to make this J-Lo sound. Also, this is her first album. Well, This Is Me Then didn't have any Spanish songs either. But I think I understand that because she's with Ben Affleck. So, okay. But you would think being with Marc Anthony by this time, she would still like be like, let's have a Spanish song or two on this. But
I was surprised that it wasn't as like Latinx influenced, or at least that she wouldn't be singing as many songs in Spanish.
Yeah, but I will say after this album is her all Spanish album. So Baby Girl dived right in and hasn't come back. And I'm okay with that because I am proud of her embracing her heritage and her roots, especially because in her movie roles, she's very much like, I can do whatever. I don't have to be pigeonholed to being a Latina.
Yeah.
And in music, I'm happy that she embraced that. So,
yes.
Cambia paso, everybody.
That's true. That's true. And I did pick up more like funk tones. Like this album is more funk, dare I say, even a little bit of rock, especially with Cherry Pie.
Yes.
Than On the Six was. I mean, On the Six and J-Lo are very dance forward, single oriented albums.
Pop,
yes. And even with This Is Me Then, we get the big hit Jenny from the Block, but like, and there were a lot more slow jams in that one, but in this one I don't remember as many big hit singles, with the exception of what Get Right and Hold You Down.
Yeah.
And I think that I kind of appreciate this album even more, that it's like, it almost feels like a bit of a deep cut than On This Six would be, that you would associate with her big early dance hits.
You know what? I really respect that opinion because I totally agree, because obviously On the Six is a debut album, so it's like, this is who I am, or this is who I want to be and give to the world. And then J-Lo is like, oh, this is me, baby. Like 110%. Like, and then This Is Me Then is like, but this is really me. And this album is like, okay, that was me.
Okay, this time for real.
Not even that. Not even that, because I don't think this album is personal, especially because she only wrote one song, and that one song is also produced by Marc Anthony, and it's Can't Believe This Is Me, which to me is the sleeper of the album in terms of like, I could skip this song. I don't need to listen to this. I listened to it once. I get it. But I just think that this album is like, I want to make an album. Maybe I have to fulfill an album requirement in my contract, and I'm gonna have fun. You know, I'm at this point in my life where I'm like trying to settle down. I'm married. I've been married for longer than a year for once in my life, and maybe I want to have some kids, and yeah, I'm having fun. Yeah, it's almost, I don't say this to like discount this album, but it's almost a phone it in album. It's very like, all right, let's find some songs, let's put together something and let's have some fun.
Yeah. No, I definitely appreciate that too. I think that's maybe because of how it was criticized. I don't know if that's what she originally had intended when she released this album, as it was hopefully maybe for her more of an unveiling of like, no, this is like Jennifer 2.0. I'm like trying to drop the J-Lo thing, and I'm trying to not recreate myself, but just show you a new side of me, a more vulnerable side. Whereas the media and her listeners at this point were like, baby, we love you. But like, you don't need to keep on saying like, okay, but this is really like my side. Like this is me now. Like I think if anything, we just expect good music, and we expect a decent album from this artist, and I don't know if she kind of like backpedaled a little bit, since this album did have some mixed reviews. There were some critics who were kind of like unfavorable. It was fairly mild in its content, or if critics were expecting more of the hype and strong feelings that This Is Me then carried, that they're like, oh, we're going to get like another one of those albums, and she's going to feel like so passionately about this new man and new person and yada, yada, yada. But to not have it be as emotionally love letter-esque driven, that's maybe why it didn't receive as high critics. I mean, I don't know. We to have two singles from an album's, I think, below average. Most albums have at least 3-4 like good hits.
Yeah, I don't know, because I feel like this album is not personal at all. I think the most personal songs are Still Around, which Marc Anthony has like a little ad lib on, which is kind of cute. In hindsight, probably at the time it was just like, okay, but in hindsight, you know, that's cute. And then for me, like, I'm just like, oh, at He'll Be Back and Can't Believe This Is Me, because honestly, she might have gotten away with having a nice little Lemonade moment about just, okay, you made this love letter album to Ben Affleck, now let's make this like, oh, you like dumped me and called off our wedding and all this stuff. Like, and I don't want to purely blame Ben, because I don't think it's all his fault. But a nice revenge album, like with all of songs like He'll Be Back and Can't Believe It's Me, and like all these songs about what he's missing out on. Granted, also, it's not realistic because Homegirl was already married, so yeah. I'm sure Marc Anthony was like, you have these two songs, but wrap it up. Like,
wrap that shit up.
Like in Dave Chappelle.
Wrap that shit up, babe. That's exactly what I was going for when I was quoting. Wrap that shit up.
But I think critically, like, people would have been like, oh, okay, I get it. But we also don't expect that from her. And I think, like, this is all she could do at that time is, like, look, I'm married, I'm happy, I'm trying to settle down. Here's some funky tracks. Like, I'm in a good mood. I've been listening to James Brown. I like the horns. I like the drums. Like, I want to have a good time. And here's some, like, I think I Got You, Still Around, Hold You Down could easily go on This Is Me Then. Like, they're very similar sonically in terms of those songs, but again, like I said, there's nothing different. It's very of the time of 2005. All I can compare it to right now in my mind is Amory, unfortunately. But I think too sometimes, and I think J-Lo fortunately has benefited from working with great producers and like really being able to push through age, push through like maybe having a not so hot moment and coming back and stuff. Like, she just dropped a song this month. But I think, like, Toni Braxton, she suffered from this, like, weird, like, R&B ballads and stuff like that isn't what's hot. But, like, my voice is more suited to that, and I can do this, like, hip-hop R&B stuff, but it's not really the best thing for me, and it's not really what my fans are used to hearing. So in a way, like, I feel like this is one of those albums also for J-Lo of trying to figure out where she's going after this. Like, okay, this isn't so popular anymore, like the super duper poppy hip-hop R&B ballads, but this is kind of popping. But I don't know, the mid-2000s are just so kind of weird. Like,
the mid-2000s were an interesting time because there were very funky things, and I'm saying funky with an Funky, funky things that worked to some artists.
Okay, so pick a number, top songs of 2005. How far should I go?
I feel like 5's not enough. I'm going to go to 10.
Okay. 1 through 10. I'm just going to rail them off.
Okay.
And then we'll talk.
Okay.
We Belong Together, Mariah Carey.
Yeah.
Hollaback Girl, Gwen Stefani.
Yeah.
Let Me Love You, Mario.
Okay.
Since You've Been Gone, Kelly Clarkson. 1-2 Step, Sierra and Missy Elliott.
Yeah.
Gold Digger, Kanye West, Jamie Foxx. Boulevard of Broken Dreams, Green Day. Candy Shop, 50 Cent featuring Olivia.
Yep.
Don't Ya, The Pussycat Dolls and Busta Rhymes. Behind These Hazel Eyes, Kelly Clarkson.
Yeah.
That is such a hodgepodge.
It's a hodgepodge.
Sounds and like.
It's a little bit more, if I'm counting in my head calculation wise, it's a little bit more R&B hip hop oriented.
Yeah.
With pop and like alternative rock or Green Day, however you want to categorize them, it being a close second and third behind there.
FYI, The Killer's Mr. Brightside was number 16.
God bless. But yeah, you're right. Like the mid in 2005, it is legit the mid-aughts. Like, we're right in between.
Smack dab in the middle.
Smack dab.
Squeezed in the middle. Smack dab. Do you remember that commercial?
No, what was that?
It was when Chips Ahoy made, like, sandwich cookies.
Okay, they're trying to get on the Oreo game?
Yes. And they had filling for, like, the first time.
Was it like the cream filling?
Yeah.
Okay, I remember those. But the main Chips Ahoy commercial that sticks out in my mind, can you read my mind from across the room?
Is like the one where they're like dancing. We were watching 90s commercials before this. We have to find that on YouTube.
Oh, it is look up 1990s jazz Chips Ahoy commercial, and it's gonna come up. And I don't know why I sound like Joan Cusack when I have a couple of glasses champagne. It just works out that way. I just turn into an extremely Ohioan person.
I'm always here for your voiceovers.
Thank you. But yes, oh my God, that Chips Ahoy commercial. Fuck.
All right. I mean, so it's a weird time, even fashion wise, and we'll get into her fashion line and stuff. But on Rebirth, my biggest problem with this album is the singles don't match the rest of the album.
Yeah, the singles are I think a strategic choice.
Yes.
but different aesthetic wise of what she's going for.
Yes, which to me, I was like, baby, we got to reorder this album. And I tried to.
Ah, okay.
So, because Step Into My World, is that not an intro track? Like, that is clearly an introduction, like, song.
Yeah.
And it's number 2 on the album, not number 1. Get Right is number 1, which plays into the theme of J-Lo albums because all of her singles, except This Is Me Then, are track number 1.
That's yeah.
If You Had My Love was number 1 on the 6 on J-Lo's Love Don't Cost a Thing. This Is Me Then, it was still, but you know, Jenny from the Block is way in the middle of the album. But Get Right is number 1, so we're back on that trend. And I was like, I don't like this as the intro song because Step Into My World is right there. Like, it is taking you on a journey into her world of this album, right? So I tried to reorder it where Step Into My World is number 1.
Okay.
And it works as a number 1, but it's hard to put Get Right anywhere else. Because, and I think I kind of understand why they put it number 1, because, okay, you play the album Get Right's number 1. That's probably the song you bought the album for, right? We've talked about this before, where at that time you're buying albums for the singles. You might play the singles a bunch of times, and then you may listen to the full thing, you may not.
Yeah.
But it's right there. What you want to hear is right there, right?
Yeah. Yep.
But also, sonically, it doesn't really work anywhere else. Like, so I did bump it down to number 2 because I was just like, Step Into My World should be the intro track. Convince me that meme, convince me that it should not be.
I mean, at least with, like, lyrical wise, it makes sense because she's like, it's like, yo, MTV, welcome to my cribs. That's the first thing you say when you open up the door to someone's house. It's like, step into my world. It's a very, like, here you go.
Exactly. But it's hard to put Get Right anywhere else, right? So I put it number 2. It can work. And then I put Whatever You Want to Do after that, which it was number 4, because after Step Into My World, when it was number 2, is Hold You Down, which is another, like, clear, here's the single early on.
Yeah.
But sonically, Hold You Down does not go after Step Into My World either. But Get Right sonically doesn't, like, Step Into My World and Whatever You Want to Do sonically go great together, back to back.
When you say sonically, you mean just when you have your headphones in and songs that blend in one after another after another?
Yes, I love an album that is intentionally doing that.
Transatlanticism, Death Cab for Cutie.
Yes, Mahid Jordan, they do that very intentionally, and due to technology, they can do that efficiently because they can definitely push the beginning of the next song into the end of the other song, and But so that way they worked great together, and so putting Get Right in between is like, okay, here's the single, but also just thematically, musically, Get Right isn't as funky as those 2 songs. So I understand why they put it first, because it's like, where else are we going to put it? Because they didn't go nowhere else. And then I moved Hold You Down to after Still Around, which is the cutesy love song with Marc Anthony's little ad-libs. But Hold You Down just shouldn't be that early on in the album, because it's still very funky. All the other lovey-dovey songs are way later. All the slower songs are way later. It should just go with them. But besides that, I think the rest of the album sonically goes well together. I think Cherry Pie is an interesting departure for J-Lo. That's, like, probably the most interesting, like, song, because it's got a little rock to it, and I like that for her. I really love I Love. Like, I've heard that song elsewhere. I don't remember where, but I was like, oh, I know this song, and I still like it. Ride or Die has some Brandy ties to it, which to some people again, might be like a detraction, might be, J-Lo's a stealer, whatever. Brandy has writing credits on this song. She does not, from what I saw, she does not have background vocal credits. I think the writing credit probably gives her more money, so fuck the background vocal credit. It was her song to begin with, but
interesting.
Put it on her album, therefore it got like tossed to like, hey, probably, do you want to record this, J-Lo? But I don't care about that. I think Ride or Die is pretty good. I love Brandy's vocals on it. Sign me up for that all day. But
yeah.
I'm not mad at Jennifer Lopez for the rest of it.
Yeah.
I don't care. But also, like, I think too, J-Lo can't go wrong either at this point because she's got clout. She's got a good rapport, I think, with other people in the industry. The fact that she has, you know, Corey Rooney still producing with her. She has Rich Harrison, who at this time, again, was popping with the A-Marie stuff. And then she has Timbaland on this album, Rodney Jerkins. Like, girlfriend can't do any wrong.
Yeah.
She's going to turn out a decent album despite, like, maybe the lack of inspiration.
Yeah. And I definitely appreciate that ideal behind this album. I think that it's an album that wasn't as fun as the other ones. Lyrical wise, I drew a lot of parallels between Rebirth and This Is Me Then. I was like, it still sounds like a girl who just has a very deep crush on a man. And that's, I know that sounds insulting and I apologize that it does. But the way in which she approaches talking about her love life reminds me of myself. And again, we're not two of the same people, but I can appreciate loving someone so hard that you just think so highly of them and that you can like
Simone is preaching, baby. Hear this word.
That you can like write a whole studio album. I think that's like a true Leo, is that she is hyping up the people that she loves. She is like, bitch, I'm in your corner. Let me sing about and talk about how much of a great person you are, how much of a great lover you are, how great you make me feel, and how I want you to feel, and how I want to make you feel, and all that stuff. Like, I feel that as a Leo, as someone who is like the ultimate hype person, who's like, if you feel like shit, you just fucking call me or call Jennifer and we'll be like, bitch, you're doing a good job. Bitch, you're doing a good job.
That is true. I will agree with that about you. I want to point out that, like, in this very, very potent word you're speaking, the He'll Be Back song starts off.
Yes.
I know better than anybody how it feels to want somebody so bad after you break up still. Girl, like, like, she married Mark, but she was not quite probably over, like.
Yes.
And she didn't write this song, but
she still chose it to be on her. Like, she had the choice to still put it on her album.
Exactly. So I totally listened to it and I was like, oh, is this a Ben Affleck diss song?
So, and then this whole thing with like Bennifer 2.0 in the year 2021 really has me thinking, I don't know if she ever properly got over him, and we can hypothesize about that. I don't think
they got over each other because she hopped right to Marc Anthony and he hopped right to Jennifer Gardner, and they both had very long marriages, very fruitful marriages, full of beautiful kids. Yeah, both of them. But the fact that they're able to jump back in so easily. And you know what's funny is I know that this episode is 2005. We're talking about Rebirth. We're talking about her and Marc Anthony.
16 years later.
But it's hard not to talk about her and Ben.
It is. I agree. And maybe that's just like the nostalgic millennials in us that like we remember Bennifer because that was a name that was so ingrained in our early pop culture. And her and Marc Anthony never got the same kind of anagram of their names like moved together.
I do want to say that I do again think they're a tremendous power couple, especially in Latinx culture.
Despite what they went through, I'm not necessarily hating on Marc and doting on Ben. I just think it's very interesting. I like to think of the Katy Perry song, The One That Got Away. It's just like when you're young and in love and incredibly impressionable, and you have this relationship that you feel so fucking hardly, and I know that's not a word, you feel so hard for, and you invest so much of your emotions, and then it cuts, maybe not even on your terms, it's cut to an end because of it being perceived by the media and through the eyes of other people, that you never even maybe have gotten the chance to fully properly grieve over the loss of that relationship, because it is a bit of a grieving process when you go through a breakup, that you like are in this stage of anger and denial and upset and heartbreak, and you feel a true roller coaster of emotions, as she had explained when she was taking some time off of her acting career, that she was like, I'm going through this huge roller coaster right now, and I'm just trying to like find this equilibrium of something that makes sense.
And personally, she took a big step back, especially like we said with media and talking about Marc in her Jay Leno and David Letterman interviews. She was like very like, I don't really want to talk about my marriage. And wasn't very forthcoming as she had been, even with Puff Daddy, even with Chris, even with Ben. And I think I love that for her at this time. I think she needed it. I hope she remembers that as we move forward with Bennifer 2.0, because they are relentless with the coverage.
I know. And because like you think paparazzi was up your butt in 2003 and around the corner, it doesn't get any easier in 2021.
Now you've got paparazzi and people with camera phones.
And
good
Universal quality camera phones.
Those Universal Studios pictures are totally just regular ass people like, oh shit, that's J-Lo and Ben Affleck, not paparazzi.
Y'all, just a literal weekend ago, me and Bria were blowing up each other's phones, like sending each other videos and pictures of Jen and Ben and Jen's kids at Universal Studios.
And Ben's son.
And yeah, it's just like, it's hard. And maybe that's because as spectators and viewers, maybe we also didn't get the proper closure of Bennifer. Maybe because their relationship ended abruptly and we're like, we didn't get the time and process to grieve and fully go through their public relationship, that we're almost like, yes. And again, I know it sounds like I'm extremely biased. Sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, I'm not rooting for, the only person I'm rooting for is Jennifer Lopez. I want nothing but the best of her. That's because of this entire podcast. I can absolutely tell you that if the Spin Gods had chosen someone else, I'd be like, I'm rooting for Meryl Streep. I'm rooting for this person. Da, 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 da. I mean, I'm always rooting for Meryl Streep. I fucking love you. But like, it could have been anyone, and we would have taken this kind of biased as we've been doing our research.
J-Lo just gives us so much.
We as spectators have been through the roller coaster emotions of things,
which is so weird because we absolutely know nothing about these people. And I understand people who are like, I don't care about what celebrities are doing, they don't pay my bills. I get it, I totally do. I, however, pay my bills and I am still bored, so I am all for new. And I too, she like got pissed at paparazzi in the Hamptons, and I totally understand that. Like, they do deserve some breaks, some time off, some uninterrupted time with their family, all that stuff, not being hounded. Like, after you've gotten a few pictures, isn't that enough? Like, do we really need to see a progress of her walking across the street or getting in a car or picking out a dress at a store?
I mean,
like,
I'll never
caught her in the wild.
I'll never know the mindset because I'm not a person of the paparazzi mindset. I do know they make money. Like, depending on the type, quality, picture, they can earn thousands of dollars per picture.
Yeah. Not as much since camera phones, but yeah, still.
For sure.
I'm sure Bennifer pictures are like up there right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do, like, as much as we're enjoying this rehash, like, I do totally respect their privacy and I really want them to work out. So I'm okay with, like, stop following them, paparazzi. I'm invested in this, but god damn it, I want this to work too. And it didn't work last time because of you. So fuck you.
That's true.
Leave them alone.
Now, I also wonder, because Jen and Ben were a lot younger at the time, if their relationship dissolved.
This is just a Bennifer, like, 3.0 episode.
This is an episode that was supposed to be about Marc Anthony and Rebirth, but it's...
Okay, finish your thought.
Okay, I'll finish my thought and then we'll talk about this J-Lo line, because I get a lot of 2000 vibes and feels and ANTM moments from this.
Oh, yes.
So, I don't know. Where was my thought going with this one? I wonder if it's just because Jen and Ben were a lot younger in the early aughts, and maybe early enough in their acting career that they, like, didn't have the confidence to withstand the public eye. But now that they are more seasoned veterans, I'm not saying they're old, because I don't think that they're old, but that they're a little bit more seasoned in the eyes of the paparazzi and social media and all of that, that they have a little bit more maturity and
they're a bit more prepared.
More prepared, thicker skin to deal with it, because I don't think they would be wanting to be seen with each other at a public place like Universal Studios or the Hampton Inns if they didn't know what they were, like, getting into with it.
Yeah, I honestly think the Hamptons was like them trying to get away and then having to go into town for, they went to a bookstore. Like, it's not where J-Lo went shopping. That's like anybody on vacation. It's like,
stars, they're just like us.
Yeah, like, she went with her sister and stuff. Like, it's not like those, when she got upset, Ben Affleck was nowhere to be seen. It was just like her and her sister and like some other people in her family or crew, and they just were trying to shop and they would not leave her alone and ruined her little shopping trip. And then they also caught, like, Ben and Emmy trying to go into a bookstore. Like, I mean, is that really paparazzi worthy?
To some people, yes.
But then it's like, at what expense? That's what I'm saying. Like, yes, we enjoy, like, okay, yeah, they're together and it's not like this ploy and they're really trying to figure it out. But at the same time, it's like, do we need to see? Although I love that Blockbuster picture of them. So, yes, we need to see them.
I don't know. I'm not
It's
justifying
hard.
The behavior of paparazzi, because I really do feel like it's scummy job.
It's just a double-edged sword.
It's a double-edged sword.
I'm very much on team duality. I could see both sides of things. I can't imagine trying to go to Target and being followed or having my picture taken. For one, I'm not prepared for that shit. But as a celebrity, you are prepared for that. You know that comes with that. So in some senses, it's like, so of course paparazzi are going to be, like, on Jennifer Lopez watch. Oh, hold the phone. She's with Ben Affleck. He's here. And A-Rod lives 8 minutes away. I mean, it's just a recipe for stay at the house.
It could have only been Ben Affleck. Let's say Jennifer decides to get with... Actually, you know what? I don't even want to go down this. I think it's just because it's Ben Affleck that it's like, and we are a nostalgic bunch of motherfuckers, as we have talked about.
I hope that they're just like aware that no matter what, people are going to be kind of interested in what's going on.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Of course, it's a little bit heightened because it's both of them together, and like this is a rehashing of some very nostalgic shit. But at the same time, it's like you're famous, and you're famous enough that people consistently give a fuck. So, kind of be happy about that.
Yeah, it's true.
I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to justify that when there's very serious things going on in the world.
Yeah. Well, it's that catch-22. Would you rather like continue to be famous but not necessarily for the right reasons and stay in the public eye, or maintain your privacy and
or not do the things that your dreams
yeah. I think for both Ben, Jen, hell, even Marc Anthony, like, fine if they never work again. They're going to be just fine. But just because you're just fine doesn't mean that you don't want to work. Like, you still want to do stuff that like fulfills your passion and whatever. So, speaking of passion, this is a really good segue. I feel like in the midst of 2000, it's not 2000, it's not 2010. We are smack dab right in the middle of 2005. Bennifer releases a new fashion line called Sweetface, and it releases in a fall line of 2005. And if anything screams 2005, and I know we're recording this episode on July 10th. I know it's not going to be released until several weeks from now. However, we're going to be putting links in our bio for this episode on some of these, for links for what these outfits look like. Because for reference, let's say for whatever reason, some Gen Zers are listening to this.
Our age demographic is pretty solid with millennials.
Definitely, which they can appreciate, and they absolutely can look at an outfit released by Sweetface and be like, yup, that's the mid-aughts. But for people who don't have a reference of what fashion was like in the mid-2000s, this is it, babe.
So I have a bit of a deep dive on mid-aughts fashion and our awareness of fashion in the fashion industry. So, usually with our movie episodes, we set the tone with some pop culture and like what was going on and stuff. And I had to like reference, I was like, what was going on in 2005 that when I watched the fashion show clips, I'm like, this makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah.
Like, this feels like homey. Like, I feel very cozy here. I don't feel totally off-put. It is like, I don't want necessarily any of this to come back. It probably will, because that's the way this cookie crumbles. But I'm very much like, I remember this. I feel this. I know what this was about. So why was that? So, Simone.
Yeah.
For me, a gateway into fashion being accessible and important to us everyday average-ass people living in suburbia in nowhere land. Fast forwarding, obviously, Project Runway comes out in 2004.
Okay.
Which is like a huge introduction of like, oh shit, this is what being a fashion designer is about. This is what that lifestyle is about. Also, let's take it back to a little teen dream called Laguna Beach. We were introduced to Lauren Conrad, Elsie, a mogul now herself in the fashion and lifestyle division. But in like 2004, 2003, post OC popularity, we get Laguna Beach. Lauren Conrad is a young budding high schooler who wants to go to FIDM. Yes, Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising. She goes to the SF one, decides that's not her lifestyle, because SoCal and NorCal are two different worlds.
Truly.
And you're either about it or you're not. I went to school in SoCal for a year and said, nope. So
I worked at Disney for half a year and I was like, nerp.
So yeah. So I totally understand why she went back, but she went back to FITM in LA. Mm-hmm. And so Lauren Conrad wants to go into fashion. Then we get the Hills spinoff, where she is pursuing her passion for fashion and design. And via the Hills spinoff, I know that I was introduced into... Sorry, Simone is pouring champagne and it overflowed again. But... Okay, so I know from The Hills and Lauren Conrad, I was introduced to Teen Vogue. I started reading Teen Vogue and caring about that in my school library or anywhere I went. And so that definitely helped introduce me to things of that nature. And The Hills just continues on that path as Lauren continues her pursuit of fashion. But here is the piece de la resistance of mid-aughts. Fashion is it, baby. The shit matters. Devil Wears Prada.
Whoa! Hot take, hot take, hot take.
2006, Meryl Streep, Anne Hathaway, Emily Blunt.
Tucci gang.
And we are in the thick of it. We have a Hollywood representation of what living the life of a fashionista is all about.
Yes.
This is like the first time for me, really, that like we understand the behind the scenes of it all. That there's people running the fashion shows. That shit starts to sink into the regular ass people of America's head. Like, oh shit. We are wearing ripped jeans, we are wearing whatever it is now because somebody said, this is cool, and this is what I want to show to America, and this is the art I want to present. That is my rant. Let us talk about Sweetface.
Wow, I think that's a really lovely introduction. It is one at 100% absolutely not going to be cut because it really is a perfect segue. I like that you use Devil Wears Prada as a means of an introduction to why fashion like the Sweetface fall line seems so familiar to us, yet maybe foreign to some. I didn't associate it with Devil Wears Prada until you just said this, and I had that like Leonardo DiCaprio meme moment of like, holy shit, you're right. But for me, I associate it with like America's Next Top Model and TM.
Oh, that too. I mean, I'm sorry. That's a great point that you brought up. I totally skipped over that. But that's another big moment of pop culture that puts us, I think that's prior to Project Runway, maybe post Sex and the City, but that puts us in the like, oh shit, like this is behind the scenes of what happens.
Yeah. So like the mix of Project Runway, the people who are making the fashion and like doing the research on what's popular and what's going to work versus ANTM, the people who are wearing the fashion and trying to sell it. And then movies like The Devil Wears Prada, who is trying to put those big brands out there of like why these companies are using this fashion sense or using this ideological, almost formulaic, pre-calculated, what's the word I'm looking for? This like, they're smart because they know recycled fashion versus new fashion, what's going to work now, what's going to uphold in a few years. I mean, sometimes fashion is a total flop and what we think is going to be great is like, yikes, McGee. But like, I don't know. I look at pictures of Jennifer Lopez's fashion line and I'm just like, chef's kiss of mid 2000s. That doesn't mean that it's right. It's an it's an era I'm nostalgic for, but in the wrong ways, because this is not one that I would be excited for if it recycles.
Okay, so I saw a thing because obviously Gen Z is bringing back a lot of early aughts fashion, and they're just kind of all over the place, because early aughts, 70s, all kinds of stuff is trending. But I think someone said that, usually if you participated in it the first time around, you take a step back the second time around. You're like, I've been there, done this, I'm out. And I think that's true in some senses. There's some things I'm like, oh man, I never got to wear that, or like I was too young, so like this is my time. But I'm also kind of edging on like, am I too old to participate in crop tops? But again, like I said, like this feels very familiar to me, seeing this style of fashion and type of fashion, and very similarly, I feel like I don't necessarily want it to come back. Like I'm like, ooh yeah, I remember that, but you can keep it
exactly. I feel the same way. Like, oh yeah, that definitely reminds me of sophomore, junior year of high school. But like, you can zip that, lock that, put it in your pocket, and never give it back to me.
So I think if it comes back, it's not meant for us, and we'll just have to just be like, yeah, we already seen and
I'm good. There are certain things that are coming back, a la butterfly clips and overalls and tie dye, and I mean, I just middle. I'm not gonna hop on that, Ricky Bobby, but I think that. Like I just went to Target yesterday with a friend who hasn't been to Target in quite a while since COVID, and also having a baby, totally understandable. But she was like blown away with how much of our youth has been resurgenced in not the adult section, but in the teen section. It's like very up in the teen section of Target. And she was like, wow, when did this come in fashion? I'm like, it's been like this for a minute. And there are certain things that we're very fond of. And then agreed, there are certain things that we can smile about. It's like, what's the quote? Don't cry because it's over, smile because it happened kind of thing. Like, I am not going to mourn incredible low-rise jeans with the -2-inch zipper. I'm not going to mourn the death of Newsies newspaper boy hats and scarves. Ponchos. I'm not going to mourn skirts over pants.
Furry boots.
There's a lot of things that I'm like, bitch, you just
baby doll tops. Keep that shit.
Chunky necklaces.
Skinny scarves.
Yeah, just stay in the 2000s.
Actually, you know what? I wouldn't mind a skinny scarf, because with climate change, that's probably what we're gonna have to.
Am I hot? Am I cold?
You're like gonna have like a thin little strand of yarn as your scarf. You're like, this
just one string.
Yes. So Sweetface, I looked at it and I was like, you know what? This is my summary of it. It's edgy, glam, very 2005, very on trend, and very cute. Lots of layers, lots of dark, rich colors.
Yes.
Feels very warm, pretty and sexy, but gritty New York. And because that is J-Lo.
Yes, that's very J-Lo. She definitely tries to do an equal mix of street fashion, Bronx, New York, versus like what's on trend. And I think she tries to uphold some of that in her music video. If you look at some of the like boots and shoes that the models are wearing, they're very like covered in fur. Homegirl is like my BFF when it comes to a good fur coat. PETA, come at me in this music video. Go ahead.
Simone's a vegetarian too, so I was surprised that you were like, oh, this fur coat moment. Like,
in the music video between her and Fat Joe is the fur coat haute couture and hold you down. But she's done it before in previous music videos, the one with LL Cool J. And I'm just like, God, Jennifer can rock a fur coat. I can't, which is fine. I'm totally fine with that. But just like, she looks good in a fur coat.
She does. Which I forgot talking about Rebirth, because we just got on like a huge Bennifer tangent. But that song and All I Have to me are sister songs because they are very similar in that respect. The Get Right video is also very 2005, and we didn't talk about that, so shame on us, because she also plays a number of different characters.
Wow, I got almost like Mariah Carey Heartbreaker vibes, but
which is ironic.
Hashtag I don't know her, but to a very huge scale. And I'm almost interested. I'm always interested to hear your thoughts, but especially because she doesn't do blackface necessarily in this music video, but she wears some like ethnic stuff. Yeah, she wears some ethnic wigs and stuff. I was a little interested.
She's Latin, and Latinx people can very much be Afro-Latina, so I don't necessarily think that's like in any way cultural appropriation or anything, but there is a fine line. At that time, though, too, I did not think about that. I'm sure a lot of people didn't sweat it, so I don't care because we're retrospectively looking at that. J-Lo wore afro now. I don't think she would, but...
No, but of the time, I mean, again, I always relate things back to my all-time favorite show, High School, America's Next Top Model, and Tyra was constantly putting models of all spectrum into different racial kinds of photo shoots. And
oh my God, there's so many problematic
there's some shit.
ATM. But I think too, like you said, like it is very of the times and not very much like, is this okay? Like, it's just like, no, this is hot. Like, this is cute. Like, and she's a DJ. I feel like DJs are always like kind of funky, free-spirited types. So I feel like that's what her intention was. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes, and I don't like talking about cancel culture as like a cancel culture is really just holding people accountable to, shit that's like, you should be paying attention to this shit.
Yes.
But I think at that time, it's just like, DJs are funky, afros are funky. I think people wore afro wigs for fun. So I don't think too much about that. So I will let J-Lo rock on that. Honestly, back to the fashion. I like it. I think to the fact that she tried to do Sweetface compared to initially after J-Lo, she had the J-Lo line is another differentiation of like her trying to step away from J-Lo. I think the line is defunct. I don't think it lasted very long.
No.
Also, I just want to point out too, at this time, I was watching I love a male Dolce & Gabbana fashion show, even though they're like racist assholes. But at this time on YouTube, I was watching them because male models are exactly. But that and Victoria's Secret, like we're starting to get fashion shows like televised, and where average ass people who can't go to New York Fashion Week can watch them. And Sweetface, we were able to pull up some footage on YouTube, but I think that also plays a role in the fashion of it all, of it being, this is cool, we should care about this. This is an avenue that, like, I feel like so many teen girls at this point were like, yeah, I want to pursue fashion, or I want to be a fashion designer.
Yeah,
fashion.
It was very, if you had cable TV and you were watching what was on mainstream TV, a la The Hills and
Runway,
all of that stuff, like you, like myself, might have had fun with the idea of maybe pursuing some kind of a career in like creative fashion or something. And it's like, it's funny to go through and be like, Jesus fucking Christ, I can't believe that this was fashion back then. We can laugh about it now because according to Kelly Clarkson, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. You just turn your trauma into comedy, babe. But I
mean, because watching the fashion show, looking at some of the looks, it's just like, yeah, it's very 2005. I probably didn't wear half this shit for sure. But it also, like, I'm not mad at it either because of like how great models just look in any fucking thing. Like you could put a bunch of chicks in a bunch of fashion from like the 1960s right now, and just because they're models, you're just like, yeah, that is cute. We should bring that back. Like, so yeah, the fashion model of it all. Also, Kate Moss was like Queen Supreme at this time, which is
Baba Booey.
Yeah, but it's just like none of these looks can. Yeah, we know that, like, oof, but none of these looks look bad in retrospect, like that much, because it's just like they just look good. Like you could slap a tarp on, like, although now fashion sometimes gets to the point where you're like, really?
Yeah.
People are paying thousands of dollars for that?
Yeah, like what was it, like Kanye West, who was like charging thousands of dollars for incredibly distressed ripped jean and t-shirt,
and sweatshirts. I think too, now that we've brought that up, I think that fashion at this point in 2005 was very still much attainable in terms of like the looks on Sweetface were transferable to lower end lines.
I could see things from Sweetface on Delia, Alloy magazine. You know, we can definitely see PacSun,
Abercrombie,
Hollister, all of it. We can see the chunky,
like,
we can see the chunky knit patterns. We can see the fur. We can see the low rise. We can see the big belts. We can see a lot of that stuff definitely rolling over. Yeah, and Jennifer Lopez obviously didn't invent the style, but she knew exactly what she was doing. She was smart in her designing this like street fashion, this haute couture street fashion.
Yes. There's this like sweater look that on Vogue that is like this orange sweater and
the chunky orange sweater.
That is doing some things to teenage brain. I love a good preppy, like, and fuck climate change because I miss fall, but I love layers, and that's probably why, like, I'm not mad at this. Like, this is probably, if I said that we don't want this to come back, and I don't necessarily want what was trendy at that time to come back, but, like, I fucks with layers, like, and living in the Bay Area, climate is always like
California.
It's beautiful outside, but shit, it's cold. So, like, I loved like a good pea coat in high school, a good scarf,
I fucked with some pea coats,
like, beanies. I love it. So, in a way, like, that part of this, like the layering of 2005, I want to come back. Don't wear a skirt or dress over jeans, but
I have no embarrassment filter anymore. As a teacher, I've completely let that go. So I really don't give too much of a shit. So I know that I have pictures of me in somewhat of this fashion. Like, I have skirts over pants. I have chunky belts. I have thick sweaters. I have pea coats. I have newspaper Newsies hats. Like, I can put that up for this episode if need be.
Do you want to? I probably don't. I don't think my style, I'm not a girly girl. I don't think my style is evocative of Sweetface or like this style in particular. I think too, if this came back, I'd probably be like, oh, that's cute, but it's still not my style, like, necessarily. It's still not my style necessarily, but I think that I wouldn't mind seeing other people in it, and I think that's my general consensus with fashion trends and stuff is like, I love that for you. It's just not for me, and I'm okay with whatever I feel comfortable in.
I'm glad you can separate that, because I think it would just, I'm one step closer to the edge and I'm about to break. If I see more people wearing those clothes that I almost killed myself trying to fit in, I would just fall apart.
Also, you know what? I'm sorry, I have to go there.
Go it.
This fashion very much reminds me also of the OC.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm getting a lot of like Misha Barton, Marissa.
Even Rachel
vibes.
Bilson's little tiny self.
Totally. Oh, totally. I think, but no. I agree, Bria, with your sentiment of looking at this fashion line. I don't just see Sweetface. I see a lot of the show's pop culture.
One Tree Hill. Oh, Gossip Girl probably came out, which also another 2020 reboot has come back.
That's a straight hit right there. If we're talking about,
especially layers and kind of
layers upon layers.
I think Gossip Girl ushered in like a newfound resurgence of preppy culture again.
Oh, definitely. Do we have closing thoughts generally on Rebirth 2005 as a whole? Jennifer Lopez and Marc Anthony, which for sure we're going to get into because tonight Bria and I have a special treat, which we're going to be watching a movie together for our next week's episode. But do you have any final wrap-up thoughts?
Sorry to Marc Anthony that we totally derailed.
I'm not sorry. It's not a male show. It's Jennifer's show. I don't give a shit.
Okay. Going into this, I will say that shortly after this time in her life, I probably became less interested in Jennifer Lopez, and I don't think she was as prominent in pop culture anymore. But after Get Right and Hold You Down, the only other single I can think of that I was like, oh, okay, is Do It Well. That I was like, oh, look at J-Lo, still doing it. And she's doing it well. But when she married Marc Anthony, I definitely think, again, that she tapped into this super Latin power couple, and she did a all Spanish album for the first time. She's a staple at like the Latin AMAs and stuff like that, and I feel like just in general she's one of those women whoever she dates, she very much is like, and I think women in general do this, but some might not, but you know, the person she dates kind of influences also the person she is or is trying to become or is embracing.
I think that's common in dating when you are definitely in your early years of relationships, whether you're married or not. Like, you share music, you know, oh wow, like, you've never heard of this band? Like, I can't tell you the amount of bands that have influenced my life because I heard about them from a previous relationship, right? So I can appreciate that as from Jennifer Lopez's perspective of like, it's not necessarily Marc Anthony influencing her, but it's like just being influenced in general from a relationship, learning new things and appreciating that about your significant other.
Yeah. So I don't even know where I was going with that, but yeah, so I fully embrace now that we're just, you know, obviously going through her film career and then touching on these music moments and other moments in her life that, like, I now understand that in high school I was just like, okay, like, this J-Lo is not meant for me. But I think overall Rebirth is a decent album. It's grown on me initially listening to it. I was like, but like I've definitely listened to it more than like probably 10 times now. I still love Get Right. Not All I Have, but Hold You Down is still a banger too. And then the rest to me is filler, but they're like very consistent, very greatly produced filler songs. They're not throwaway songs to me. There are definitely some filler songs where it's like, why the fuck did you put this on? Like, what were you thinking? And this album is still playable to me. In a ranking of her albums, I'm not listening to this first. Rebirth is just like I think it's a good, like, in the hierarchy of her albums, it's a good number 4. Like, it's a good, like, I've ran through J-Lo, I've ran through This Is Me Vid, I've listened to On the Six. I'm listening to Rebirth and chill. And fashion-wise, even J-Lo herself was victim of mid-aughts fashion.
We all were.
Also is a link of her outfits herself at premieres, events, and stuff, of just moments that maybe she probably would not repeat.
Doesn't mean she looks bad. I feel like
she doesn't.
No, you can put Jennifer in a fucking potato sack and she will look so good. And that's the unfair part.
That is the wild part that I noticed. I was just like, okay, this is so 2005, like, ew. But goddamn,
she looks so good.
And I'm sorry.
Crop top turtlenecks, low rise.
To everyone who wants to hate on Jennifer Lopez, I'm not the person to do it with at this point.
I'm not the person either. I dare you. I double dog dare you to pick a fucking fight with any of us at this point. You all know at this point, Bria runs most of our social media accounts, but in the offshoot you ever hit any of us up on our social medias, we will defend JLo's honor till death.
But yes, so at this point, JLo can do no wrong fashion-wise, music-wise. I feel like this is a decent phone-in record. Sorry, Marc Anthony, that, like, we still are just trying to get over Bennifer at this point.
Listen, we'll talk more about you next week with El Cantante.
That and her all-Spanish album, because I believe he was heavily involved in that. So maybe Marc Anthony will get his redemption, and by the time she has the twins, there's plenty of time because he spent 10 years with her.
Yeah. So, bruh, you can wait.
Yeah, we're still reeling from Bennifer's breakup. Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, we're really not sorry.
Simone, final thoughts. Rebirth, Sweetface, Marc Anthony, Bennifer.
I mean, Rebirth was a decent album. I probably liked it just the same as This Is Me Then. How
dare you?
I'm sorry. Overall, I feel like this album is fine. It's a decent album that I was listening into the rub-a-dub tub that I was really enjoying. Again, I think I really liked Cherry Pie the most because it reminded me of She's My Cherry Pie. Yes, but I think that, was it great? No. Was it good? Yes. And I appreciate that she has apparently moved on to a love that will sustain her for the next several years in her career. And I look forward to giving Marc Anthony a little bit more screen time or airtime with talking about it. I'm not apologizing for the fact that we talked mostly about Bennifer in this episode, but I think that it serves more as an exposition purpose. We'll talk more about Marc Anthony later. Bitch, you got plenty of time. Sweetface was a fun and triggering path down memory lane in a mindset that I'm glad has stayed in 2005 for many. If it does end up coming back, I'm comfortable with myself to say that I'm not going back to that.
I'm here for the layers.
I'm here for the layers, not for the low rise.
That's a good line.
Thank you. Put that on our next sweatshirt and t-shirt. I'm here for the layers, not for the low rise. And
that's probably why we layered, to counter the ass crackery of it all.
Oh yeah, you have to have a long layering tank top because you know that if you bent down, you were gonna get some butt crack, whale tail. If you were wearing thongs at this time,
tramp stamp if you were tatted up.
Tramp stamp if you were tatted up, or if you were just going commando. You're just going to see some good old-fashioned butt crack, babe. J-Lo, either way, no matter how your pants were staying up, no matter how crop top your shirts are and how turtleneckily your line goes up to your chin, I just adore you so much. It would be the ultimate gift, I think, to Bria and I if we ever end up anywhere from this podcast that we can ever have like some kind of a conversation with
a
you.
gift box of JLo beauty, perhaps, or perfume, or just some leftovers you don't want.
I will grin and bear it in your Sweetface line if you do send some stuff. I'll wear a Newsies cap. I can't wear the pants, babe. But if you send me a scarf and a
Bring
hat,
back pinstripe pants and a newsie cap. I am not mad at that.
I'm not mad at
Or
it.
vest. I'm not mad at that either. You know what? I might be, the longer we talk about this, I might be okay with mid-aughts fashion coming back.
I'm not.
I love a vest. And a blazer. Oh, sign me up. Yes. It's just the preppiness of it all.
Jennifer, we appreciate what you've been doing despite what you've been through at this point, and that please know that out of this podcast, the fates be with the spin of the wheel. You have two pretty big fans that are like backing you up in your corner. I look forward to talking about back on to the topic of film next week. And I feel like we're ready to end this bitch.
Yes. All right. Thank you guys for listening to this week's episode, and to the people who stuck with us so far. Please come back for another episode of the great value version of Inside the Actor Studios, because baby, we back on movies. If you were like, I'm tired of this pop culture shit.
Yes. Well, we will be discussing a little bit of pop culture next week, because if you like us enough to stick around, take another deep dive down this IMDb rabbit hole with us as we discuss 2005's Monster-in-Law, which co-stars Jennifer Lopez and Jane Fonda. And we all know that the mid-aughts had some juicy pop culture, baby.
Yes, and on that note, if you got nothing better to do, go figure out a theme to watch a bunch of movies you've never seen, or maybe listen to a few JLo albums you've never listened to.
Yes! And on that note, please subscribe to this blessed mess. Leave us a like if you are into it.
So, on that note, I'm your host, Bria, and wipe off that sweet face of yours. And go leave us a review. Subscribe to the podcast if you so dare to want to hear us on a weekly basis. And follow us at Roll Call Pod on Instagram, TikTok, and my favorite, Twitter.
Yes, go pick a fight with Bria at ROLECALLPOD. Just kidding. I'm your host, Simone. This has been a not so many episode of Roll Call and Kurt.
Yeah.